I want to thank everybody for taking the time to look at this quick video. A couple of days ago I saw the 60-minute video about the SAT scandal, and I wanted to make a quick application to help combat the fraud. So I call it the Anti-Eshaghoff System. Now we're going to take a quick look at some of the security measures that are in place for the SAT.
During the course of the investigation, what did you discover about the process of taking the SAT and the security associated with taking an SAT test? How incredibly easy it is to cheat the system. There is absolutely no security in place whatsoever to prevent criminal impersonation like we see here from happening. So if I went up to any one of those kids and I say, "Do you know what this guy did?" they'd all know.
Every single person would know who I am and what I do.
Eshaghoff says paid test takers were an open secret among students at Great Neck North. He became the best known, but he says he was not the first.
I had heard of it happening successfully in my own high school.
Okay, so what have we learned so far from that segment? We learned that there is zero security in place. Later on in the video, we also learned that a man can easily take an exam for a female. And we also learned it's very easy to get a fake student ID. And we also learned that criminals are very creative. Let's hear in Sam Eshaghoff's own words how exactly he was able to pull off this scam.
Here's how he did it. It was as simple as making a high school ID, one of 6 forms of identification accepted at SAT testing centers.
A school ID is what is that? It's some colors with literally a name and a picture on it. So what I would do is I took the template for my high school ID, pasted my picture on top of it, and whatever person's name whose test I was taking, I would have their name and date of birth on it. And it was really as easy as that.
No social security number, no driver's license, no passport.
Name and date of birth.
On a little piece of plastic.
On a little piece of plastic that got laminated once.
Fake ID in hand, and with a bad case of nerves, Eshaghoff began his lucrative career.
Now that we've learned how he was able to perpetrate the scam, it's time to take a look at the simple solution I implemented. We're going to need to use the Anti-Eshaghoff system. In the old system, we used to only require one form of ID. Now we're going to require 2 forms of ID. And one of them should be the ETS ID, which is the Educational Testing Service Identification. So every test proctor will have access to the Anti-Eshaghoff application. It is currently compatible with the iPhone and Android. ETS ID. So what exactly is the ETS ID? ETS ID is going to be the Educational Testing Service Identification. So every student will get a unique ETS IN, which is a unique identification number that will be assigned to every student. Here we did not want to use the social security number for liability reasons, so that's why we're going to create an arbitrary identification number for each student. And every student's picture will be taken by a certified ETS agent, and the picture should be taken within the year that the student is planning to take the test. So we'll say 6 months to a year before the student takes the test. And the identification card will also have their first name, their last name, their gender, and the state in which the student lives. The gender is very important because Eshaghoff talks how he was able to take the test for women with foreign sounding names. So unless you have a foreign sounding name and you look like a man, any proctor should be able to tell a man from a woman. So now let's take a look at the home page here. So the Anti-Eshaghoff application is designed to help combat criminal impersonation. It's going to be a very simple interface. It's going to be compatible with the iPhone and the Android, and it can only be used by an authorized ETS personnel. So it's going to have two simple buttons. The first button, which we see here on the left, is going to be to launch the application. And then the second button on the right pretty much is going to be the legal disclaimers and how to use the program. And then once the application has been launched, it's going to be... So once the application has been launched, the application is going to be built around the ETS ID. So it's pretty much how I'm envisioning something like a credit card, processing. It's pretty much going to be attached to the phone, and then you're going to be able to swipe the ETS ID and have the field automatically populate. Or the test proctor will be able to manually enter the ETS IN, which is the ETS identification number of the student. So if the student is in fact in the system, then their picture is going to show up. And if the picture on the card matches the picture in the system, it's going to get a green light. And any fake identification cards will get an automatic red light. So now let's take a look at what a green light would look like. Here I didn't want to use actual people, so I'm just giving a random example here. So the criteria for getting a green light: you need a valid ETS ID, the person's photo should match the card and the application, so it should be the same exact thing, and the person must also be currently registered to take the test. So let's take an example of a red light here. If the person provides a fake ID, that's going to be an automatic red light. But there are instances that won't show up in the system. For example, if the person's picture does not match what's in the system, that's going to be what we call a visual red light. So now we're going to switch over to the application so that you can get exactly a feel of what's going to be happening when a student arrives to take a test. Okay, so now that we have a basic understanding of exactly what we're trying to accomplish, now this is a good place to build and run the application so that we can see exactly what it's going to look like when we compile to the iPhone. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this boring part, and as soon as it's finished compiling, we'll pick up from there. Okay, so this is exactly what people are going to see the first time they turn on the application. They're going to see this very clean interface. They're going to see Anti-Eshaghoff System texture, and it's pretty much going to have two buttons. The first button is going to launch the application, and the second button is going to have instructions on how to use it. So let's go ahead and let's launch the application. So for this simple test, we just have 3 fictitious students here in the system. And like I said, this is just a test, so this is in no way complete. Let's look at the first one here. Dexter Boy Genius. Like I said, these are just examples, so I didn't want to use actual people in the demonstration to avoid confusion. Let's look at another example here. Norville Rogers, commonly known as Shaggy. And then pretty much, let's look at another one here. And now let's look at what's going to happen if somebody who is not in the system tries to show up with a fake identification. It's going to show up as an unlisted person. So I'm looking to really develop this where we can have like an interface, like a hardware that's almost like the credit card scanning, where the student will be able to just check the card and automatically detect if they're in the system or not. This I truly believe, and we can deploy this in time for the next SAT. So, and I also added a reset button here at the bottom. Goes back to the beginning, and we can repeat the entire process all over again. So I want to thank you for taking this time to watch this video, and if you have any questions or comments, you can always feel free to contact me directly. Thank you.